In our first segment, the Campaign for Human Rights and Development International is a rights-based social policy advocacy organization focused on a range of human rights and social justice issues. Well, in a recent release, the organization called for urgent government action on judicial abuse, along with other pressing issues. They are advocating for the restoration of integrity within the judiciary, improved condition for judges and magistrates. Well, CHRDI also highlights alleged instances of executive interference where court orders have reportedly been ignored. Well, such action, CHRDI says, threatening judicial independence and undermine the state's commitment to justice and more. Well, to delve deep into the conversation this morning, we have Abdul Fatoma, Chief Executive, CHRDI, and Francis Mori, Public Relations Officer at the Judiciary of Sierra Leone. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Now, the reports emphasize the need for, or the need to restore integrity within the judiciary. What are the specific reforms does CHRDI recommend in order to ensure that, you know, we're able to achieve, or your institution is able to achieve this, and how would it be feasible given that the political and economic landscape currently in Sierra Leone?
Yeah, I like your other second to last word, we instead of
CHRDI.
but we can only draw the attention of, you know, stakeholders like the government. We influence policy direction, policy reform, reshaping, you know, policies that are not in the best interest of citizens in this country. And we called on the 12th of this month on the government of Sierra Leone to pay very urgent attention to the Sierra Leone Judiciary, one of the arm of government of Sierra Leone. The judiciary and justice system is the anchor for development in any country. If any country downplay the important roles that the judiciary plays, then definitely you will see how backward that nation will be. And so with that, during our investigation, we talked to judges, magistrates, and also workers at all cadres within the judiciary. We are in communication with them, and they help us with materials that are very much useful to our campaign, and we consulted those materials and we verified them, and we know that, you know, they are authentic and the links to the judiciary of Sierra Leone. And one of the major reforms we want now, we discovered that recently in October, that this country, the judiciary is currently operating on the 2005 Code of Conduct. And when you look at that Code of Conduct, even the composition of an ethics committee, it's so vague. And the other thing we're looking for also is to look into the welfare of all workers and the caseload on judges at the Sierra Leone Judiciary, the understaffing of magistrates and judges. As we speak now, let's go to the top, the Supreme Court. One at ICC, one at the ECOWAS Court, one on medical absent for medical reason, one on leave, indefinite leave by the government, and you have 5 plus 1, the current acting Chief Justice, who is a contract judge, you know, by thing. This is at the Supreme Court. And then you go to the magistrates. We are having like 34 magistrates. And one retire, study leave, and the other one, so actively, we're talking about 31 active for 7 point, or let's say 8 million people up from Statistics Sierra Leone. And you go to the High Court, you have huge challenges, moving, you know, High Court judges to the Appeals Court judges to the Supreme Court. So we in CHRDI think that if we as a country have the right human resource capacity and the proper reform, when you look through our call, he cried out to government of Sierra Leone for a reform, right? Then coming back to the issue of other abuse, there's a code of ethics. In other workplaces, we call it staff handbook. And the staff handbook is not superior than the country, whatever country, the state law, that's the employment law or labor law in that specific country. So like for Sierra Leone to be specific, if you have a staff handbook, you have to take it to Ministry of Labor. And Ministry of Labor needs to go through it and see it aligned with the country labor law. So now, suspending people, no matter the gravity, we are talking about the procedural here. Suspending people for 6 months without a salary. We have consulted the Sierra Leone labor laws. We are still unable to identify where the judiciary received their power to send somebody home half a year without salary. To a point, if the situation is so grave, you will recommend termination, because there are provisions that says if you steal, the issue of theft at a workplace, it's subject to gross misconduct, and gross misconduct is subject to dismissal. So, but that is not the case. The letter that we have that speaks to this suspension, it says in July, the Judicial Legal Service Commission, headed by the Chief Justice as the Constitution mandated, chairs that commission, and he needs to be advised by the member. The composition is open. You have somebody from the Sierra Leone Bar Association, it's stated in the Constitution, and somebody who is a non-practitioner, it's stated in the Constitution. Somebody from the Public Service Commission, it's stated in the Constitution. Form up this body, and that letter is speaking to us that they consulted that body for their attention and recommendation, and their best recommendation they gave according to that letter.
Now,
okay, please.
Speaking to this body, now you highlighted about some executive interference. Yeah. Can you maybe provide us with some examples, and also what mechanism have you proposed in order to safeguard the judicial independence in this country?
One, let me just come to you. There are certain orders against certain sitting government officials, either ministers. You know, it has been a challenge for, a serious challenge for the under-sheriff to really execute that. You know, the under-sheriff is headed by the Inspector General of Police. And so when executing, they have a police escort, you know, when the bailiff executing these things. So, I mean, there are enormous challenges, right, with executing that. And now if you go there are pile of, you know, pending, you know, orders waiting. And there's another segment to that, we'll come to that. And we proposed back in 2021, our organization published what we call Justice Under Lockdown. You guys hosted us here. And we highlighted corruption again back in the judiciary, and we highlighted the constraints and challenges. Immediately after that advocacy paper, again highlighting the constraint of the judiciary in terms of human resource at the bench, then they had the opportunity, a clearance from government, to have more magistrates and judges added. And we advocated for the personal security of magistrates and judges, because we know the sensitive work they do in this country. So And we put out 14 recommendations, and still those recommendations are valid. So all what we want, again, the makeup of our constitution with regards to the judiciary, it cannot be independent, absolutely, because the AG who serve as a liaison between the executive government and that of the judiciary, not only this AG, all other AG, they are politicians. They go to cabinet and they vote.
Fatoma, your submission held me thinking as to what could have been the triggers. But again, how do you think these imbalances that you've mentioned, how do you think it impacts the effectiveness and efficiency of the judicial system of this country?
Any judicial system or any organization, even AY, having challenges with the actual manpower, you know, the number of staff that can wield the work, you know, at the workplace, definitely you cannot see much growth. And every institution that lack the financial resource to actually do their work, you know, to their work plan. I mean, definitely, if they lack that resources, you're not going to expect any growth. And so if you don't expect any growth, you cannot expect progress. And you have judges and magistrates who are working for the judiciary who have not received maybe 2, 3 years to 4 years an official vehicle. They're using their personal vehicle. And you have staff, senior staff, they still riding Okada, keke, to go to work, or even run this errand, you know, to come to radio or televisions, right? Not actual a dignified, respectable things. These are the genuine reforms that our organization is calling for. If you go to other countries, the judiciary is highly respected. It's a sacred place. But if the judiciary lack what it takes to get its integrity, it's challenging. We need to give them money, and we need to constantly hold them accountable like our organization is doing. We have been doing this. I mean, you, Samuel, you have interviewed me a lot when it comes to this, you know, highlighting issues, corruption within the judiciary, either from Cham time or, you know, Babatunde time, and also the current Justice Bramak. So we have been consistent, we have been persistent to urge the government of Sierra Leone and also urge the workers of the judiciary to conduct their attitude towards the dignity of the institution. That has been our position. We have never shifted from that, and we'll keep holding on that.
But now let's share in more. You've listened keenly to Fatoma as it regards to the submissions in relation to the institution you work for. Will you speak to the fact of the already highlighted issues?
Well, we, like I always tell people, we are a body mandated by the 1991 Constitution to preside on cases both civil and criminal, and to administer justice to the people of this country, to every length and breadth of this country. Now, whilst we administer this sacred function of ours, we are guided by core principles such as integrity, impartiality, transparency, and what have you in the discharge of our daily functions. Now, the Constitution is very clear on the mandate of the judiciary. Section 120, 1 and 2 is clear to say, whilst we administer, in fact, it states that the Chief Justice is the administrative head of the institution. And whilst we administer our functions, we don't revert to anybody. We are not subject to the directions, instructions, or what have you of anybody under the laws of Sierra Leone.
In practice or in theory?
Both in practice and in theory. So that is one set of it. Now, like every other institution, what we cannot shy away from is that we are challenged. Towing Mr. Fatoma's line in that regard, we're challenged. As I speak to you, we still have courts in the provinces that are dilapidated, that need reconstruction. We still do not have courts built in every district of this country, which is a challenge. We still, like he said, we still are understaffed. We cannot shy away from that, because if you see the composition of the judiciary, this is the third arm of the government of Sierra Leone, and we are everywhere as our functions demand, unlike the parliament, with all due respect to them. The residents here, though their members are cutting across the country. But we go far and wide, to every length. Our magistrates are in Kabbalah, Kamakui, what are the seats. So we are challenged. If you can put the entire staff of the judiciary together, we are not up to 500. A third arm of government that is spread across this country. So these are concerns. If you advocate for employment, the government will have to see the balance as to where they should come in. Okay, we want more staff. We want to take justice close to the people. Well, let's see how we can chip in. Let's see how much we can do for this employment. So we are challenged. Kudos to the government of Sierra Leone. They are greatest sponsors. And what we normally do when advocacies like this come up is to encourage them to increase budgetary allocations to the judiciary, so we can be able to actually nail our mandate, which is administering justice to the people of this country. If we have just 5% of the national budget allocated to us, there is no finger that will not point at what we can do with that amount. Now that puts aside, we are a body that is run by laid down statutes. Even our composition is provided for by the 1991 Constitution. Now, when you come to recruitment of our staff, it is clearly provided for in the 1991 Constitution. Revert to Section 140, 1 and 2 of the Constitution, Section 141, 1 and 2 of the Constitution, Section 142, 1 and 2 of the Constitution. They are clear on the roles of the Judicial Legal Service Commission, which is the body mandated to recruit judicial staff. Now, when they do, they don't revert to any other body to say, this is what we do, this is what we do. The Chief Justice acts in his capacity in consultation with other members of the Judicial Legal Service Commission. Now, when those staff are recruited, their conduct is regulated by the Judicial Legal Service Commission. If you go to 142, subsection 1 and 2, it is clear that the commission shall set up a committee to investigate any conduct of a staff that is inimical to the growth and development of the institution. So when there is a report of misconduct from any staff, we as custodians of the law, people are clear, even lawyers are clear to say judges are the custodians of the common law. That being the case, every other employment case that goes around in our courts are happening before us. Our judges are aware. They preside over employment disputes in so many other institutions. So nobody can say we can come to a point of trying to attempt to discipline the staff without reverting to all relevant laws relating to employment in this country. Now, when we subject any of our staff members to a disciplinary action, we ensure that we revert to all possible employment laws that are related to employment of a public servant. Like you say, our employment, like I've said, our employment does not go through the normal civil service employment. We have our own internal body, which is Judicial Legal Service Commission, that employs our staff. They are concerned, their responsibility also includes discipline the staff, ensuring that their conduct conforms to the laid down rules within the institution. So when we discipline our staff, we revert to every possible law that relates to public servants. And when that committee sits to decide, like he said, he has given the composition of that of the Judicial Legal Service Commission. We have lawyers, we have people of reputable standing in society. They proffer a punishment that is commensurate to the offense the staff has committed.
Maureen, may I beg to come in? You've highlighted or speak to some of the challenges within the judiciary system. As you mentioned, you guys are the custodian of law, and it's also important to keep or focus on the area of public trust. Now, what measures have the judicial system tends to implement, in order to maintain or retain or gain public trust? Because there's a little bit of challenge now. People tend not to take their problems again to courts because they find out that, they're not being judged the right way.
In that way, I beg to differ a bit.
Please
because
speak to it.
there have been stringent measures or steps taken to revert to best practice in recent times. We know that this lack of public trust emanated from the role the Truth and Reconciliation Commission says the judiciary played as a cause of the war, lawyers and what have you. So that stemmed from that. So we've been trying, it's an existential problem. You don't come to address it once and for all, public trust. But what we have done and what we are committed to doing is ensuring that we revert to best practice as it resonates with other judiciaries in the sub-region, and also ensuring that our officers conduct themselves in the best possible manner that will uplift the integrity of the institution. Public trust in recent times has increased incrementally. That I can assure you.
Are there statistics to speak to say?
This can be put this way.
Yes.
In recent times, the Honorable Acting Chief Justice to tell you that the need to increase access to justice has increased incrementally. Engaged on a tour across the country. Part of where he visited was the Waterloo Court. Now you will notice that statistics has proven within our institution that the highest number of criminal offenses in recent times is coming from Waterloo. Now Waterloo only has one magistrate court. If they have a high court case, if that magistrate sits on a matter, before now, sits on a matter, and there's sufficient evidence to commit that matter to the High Court, they have to come to the main town, the main law court to be tried. Now he has seen the need for us to have a resident High Court at Waterloo, being the district headquarters town of the West area, rural area, which is to tell you that people now, more than ever before, are reverting back to taking their cases to now. To shock you the more, people are more paying attention to criminal cases. But what has come out clearly in recent times, that is because of public trust in the institution now, is civil cases are more coming up these days. They are in an overwhelming number. Taking civil cases to court. Forget about the criminal side of the law. So these instances will tell you that without gainsaying, we are making frantic efforts to ensure that justice is not only done in the books, like we see in the Constitution.
Sorry.
It is taken to the people.
But again, Maury, it's normally said that justice delayed is justice denied. There are a number of issues that I highlighted from the report issued by CHRDI. But again, what seems very clear in Sierra Leone is the fact that cases having to do with cases that do have political undertones are being treated with the required seriousness as compared to other cases that are not politically motivated. It is so very clear. Take, for instance, the treason matter. Within the twinkle of an eye, it has been dealt with, and there is already a verdict speaking to same. There are cases having to do with murder, robbery with aggravation, and so to speak, they've been there for donkey years, Maureen. Will you speak to same?
You see, delay in the administration of justice has to do with key other players within the criminal justice system, not only judiciary. Now, what people mostly term delay in administering justice is not only centered around the judiciary. Like I have said, key other players have to come on board to ensure that we fast-track cases before the court. The investigation of cases starts with the police. They ensure cases are investigated. When they are done investigating, they take that file to the law officers department for advice. And when they advise, the law officers department know what to do, and they file that matter before the court, and they appear before us. When they come before us, the matters begin. But when it begins, sometimes the prosecution will come to us to say, "My Lord, we seek a short adjournment for XYZ reasons." That is when the judge, who is the arbiter of justice, the independent person behind the bench, listening to the prosecution, he will ask, what are the reasons you want to proffer that you think you want an adjournment? And if that judge is not convinced as to why the adjournment should be given, he will compel progress to be made. So like I have said, delays span from a number of issues. Now, for cases like treason, which you rightly mentioned, everybody knows knows the importance of treason, which is in fact a calculated attempt to overthrow a constitutionally elected government.
Sure.
Now, should that case be made to linger in court with suspects arrested behind bars, it speaks to security threats. Because the best thing you can do for that country as a third arm of the government of Australia is to ensure that that case is given priority and it's dealt with within the shortest possible time to ensure those who are found wanted based on the evidence are kept behind bars.
Its gravity is just like that of murder.
Every other case
Well,
every other case is given equal attention. In fact, we don't have political cases. When soldiers act outside the law, they come to us as suspects and not political persons. There's no political person before us. When you come in conflict with the law, you are an accused person. You are a suspect to the police, and when you come to us, you are an accused person until otherwise proven guilty. Now, our judges are mindful of the fact that when these people, regardless of your class or status, appear before us, they are presumed innocent until otherwise proven guilty.
It is very clear that it's very much unfair to say nothing has been done within the judiciary, because over time we've seen a lot of reforms. But again, it is also very fair to say more needs to be done within the judiciary of Sierra Leone. Fatoma spoke of a number of things, and one of which is the ethical codes within the judiciary, which he points to, saying that it has overlived its relevance. Is that still the case, Maury? The judiciary is still working on an ethical code that is dated way back in 2005.
So like I said, if the committee that is set up to investigate the conduct of any staff is to come to a conclusion, relying just on the 2005 code is the least you can say about people who are referred to as learned. They have to refer to all other possible laws,
namely
that resonate with the conduct of every other public service law.
But the code is what regulates the operations and activities. The code is what regulates the activities of workers in an institution.
To a very large extent, but I have mentioned that the Judicial Legal Service Commission is the body that disciplines staff. Now, when they take their decision, they revert to the code and other relevant laws that play around the conduct of every public servant in this country. Now, when they come to those conclusions, it is informing, and you can't point at anything that anybody will come up with to say the committee has not consulted this law as it relates to this act of a staff that has been violated, so that has violated any laws.
So quickly before Fatoma comes in, because I'm sure he'd want to make a submission to, based on what we were discussing. Now, I would want you to, clearly answer this question. Are you convinced or sure enough that the judicial system or the judiciary is challenged?
I have not shied away from that. I have said we're challenged. I had made a very good case on that as to areas where.
So I asked that because a few among the things that Fatoma Of CHRDI highlighted is the fact that better living conditions for judges and magistrates. Now, what has been implemented so far in order to ensure that these judges and magistrates have the required need or their welfare is being put in place?
So we are at the receiving end from the executive and to a very large extent the parliament. As a third arm of government, we are forced to work within what is allocated to us at the commencement of every fiscal year.
You are forced.
Yes, you are forced to work within what is allocated to you as an institution. And what we have done, we know our judges, like I talk to you now, sit in courts that are open to any public assault. If any mischief can say, I want to cause mayhem in the provinces. Sometimes their back are left open, only with few OSD officers standing. That's the risk they take to ensure justice is taken to the far length and breadth of this country. Now, that notwithstanding,
and what has been done in order to address all of those things?
Where there are funds readily available, as I speak to you, there's been a court opened in Kailam, a newly constructed court opened in Kailam. As I speak to you, there's another at an advanced stage under construction in Kabbalah. So it's not that we have just sat down to say this is what we're settled for. There are clear intentions to ensure that every court receives a facelift in this country. But when the funds are made available, administratively, we are at an advanced stage to ensure that we encourage partners, our donor partners, to chip in. Sometimes this burden is too much on government. We go to partners to talk to them. This is what we need. And UNDP has been coming through for us. UNDP has been coming to ensure that they alleviate some of those challenges that we are faced with and relieving the burden on government. But sometimes it's slow, and we only continue to encourage the government that when funds are available, we want our staff, our judges, our magistrates to work in a decent environment. But we cannot stop them to work when those conditions are not available. We work with the one we have to ensure we don't deprive the people of this country from what is constitutionally their right.
It seems more like the judiciary is calling for financial autonomy at this particular moment.
Well, there is
you're asking for same, but it's more like from his submission, it's like they're also requesting for same because the fact is that
they have not been clear on that.
There's a thin line between the law as it is and what it's not.
Of course, I understand. So now let's see the need to usher in Fatoma. You've listened keenly from his submission. I know you want to make several clarifications with regards to what he said.
Yeah, you made a very good point to him about political motivated cases or political cases, and in his response he said that there are no politicians before them, and that's not true. There's currently a political party face an injunction. They are not ordinary people, they are politicians, they are a political party. C4C is currently facing an injunction as one of the 17 political parties in this country. So they cannot currently participate on political activities. Yesterday, there was an event for registered political party, but because of that court injunction, slam against the operation of C4C as a political group, and the matter was taken to the court by politicians. They are politicians. So, I mean, overall, we're different by nature, but we belong to different associations. And political party matters has been dealt with recently at the High Court, at the Supreme Court as well. You know, the Abdul Fatoma and the Councillor case, right? And so politicians do, and they have their right. And it was the same court that also listened to political petition, election petitions, after 2018. And the other thing is this, coming back from your point, before 1978, the judiciary used to have their own treasury. And that was making a lot of difference for the judiciary. Because, for example, now they want to reduce caseload. They have the mandate to recruit staff because they have the resources. And guess what? Through court fines and order, the judiciary is generating a lot of money. And if they are given the opportunity to actually manage that money, government will be just doing little to them, but they themselves will have a free hand to operate. Let's look at the political nature of how our judiciary operates. If the Ministry of Finance, for example, I'm not saying correctly, just for example, have a serious issue with the judiciary, and the judiciary wants to look into an issue and they need more judges, the AG go on behalf of the judiciary because the CJ, by procedurally, cannot go to the Ministry of Finance. And even like saying UNDP cannot come to you. UNDP gives you money through the government of Sierra Leone. It's not procedural. UNDP gives money to the government of Sierra Leone, but to be specific for access to justice or supporting rule of law. It's on procedural for any business entity, apart from the national coffer, legislated by law to support the function and the operation of the judiciary, because they don't need to compromise. One thing is Ali talked about, the integrity. But we have been seeing that. A magistrate narrates his or these to us. He was sitting in a remote part of this country. He was supposed to sit a court, and then he had a breakdown because he was using his private vehicle. He had no knowledge that a litigant was the one who offered him a ride until they arrived. And this individual, so I mean, these are just the things, and that's the reason why other countries, the judicial funds is protected, and they allow it to operate smoothly. But when you come back home, nothing. But then the sad thing is this: when we actually put our press release, we highlight the systematic failure. He may agree or he may not agree. He's at his liberty to do that. But lack of supervision.
Because I honestly wanted to ask, beyond the executive interference that you mentioned, what are the other systematic,
failure? Yeah. I mean, lack of supervision as well, from the top to the bottom. There are most things that happen based on people we talk to genuinely at the judiciary, and in as much as they have a disagreement with the leadership, but they said that the leadership is not aware of some of these issues, right? So meaning it's lack of supervision. So it's a systemic failure. And now you have a Chief Justice sitting on closely maybe 98 or 90-something cases. Barely. He offers himself every day to sit on backlog cases. We have high court judges. Could it be these judges are lazy, they cannot do their work? Could it be they are being overwhelmed with a lot of litigations and the caseload is so high that the Chief Justice needs to calm down and sit on these cases? Could it be that they are incompetent? I mean, with no disrespect. But several factors will lead to that. And we have cases, when we put out this press release, always as we do, and we have a lot of people from the public who come with their cases. And what we do, we ask for their case number, and we cross-check with the filing room to actually ensure that that case is still there and it's in front of a judge. There's one from Bo, since 2021, just waiting for a ruling. Since 2021, this is 2024, right? And we have other cases here in Freetown since 2019. We have the case number. If the judiciary need them, we can help them with that. With these cases, we have several cases that are pending. Yes, as he said, there are key players in the criminal justice sector. The police investigate and help to indict. And when these people go through trial or doing pre-trial, the correctional services come in as another key player, part of the criminal justice sector, to keep these people as safe until the conclusion of the trial. So, and then you have another key part of the trial proceedings, which come with evidence. You go before the court on two aspects: the fact, which is your evidence, and the law, which the judge or magistrate is bound by. So sometimes the prosecutor, the police, struggle to get witnesses to come before the court to testify, so that this very trial, can be speedily dealt with. So it comes back to the reality. I'm happy that this morning he's not shy away from that, but in their counter press release against our organization, if you read it, it shows clearly that his position today is completely different. And which is so good, because one thing about accountability is a growth. Each and every one of us, we are accountable. And when people hold us accountable and learn from our mistakes, it gives us the opportunity to improve on our personal self. Same goes to institutions.
Fatoma, you spoke of forum shopping. Your institution spoke of forum shopping in your reports. Help the public understand this concept.
This is a systematic thing. I mean, it's not a new thing, and it's still existing. We spoke to judges and magistrates. Cases will be before them, and that cases will be removed and placed to another judge. Maybe even the matter is just waiting for ruling, and that case will be removed. It has been an old system.
Willingly?
Not willingly. I mean, it's a command. It's a command. I mean, judges have their superior, they have their supervisors, they have their bosses. I mean, Moray here have a supervisor, and he has a boss. So there are certain things that he may want to do, but if it doesn't please the boss, definitely. These are bitter truths, but when we accept it as a country and not seeing us as enemy, it's a problem. You were the first to grant me an interview in August 2016. In July 29, we published calling for Parliament to be accountable to the people of this country for the Constituency Development Fund. I was in the UK when you placed me on a call to also talk about that. I flew in August, and then in January, I was in this country. You were the first again to call me to give me the media presence here in Sierra Leone, right? And then 98 and others, I was at 98 where they invited me, but then whilst I was in town, you were the first also. You coordinated that. And towards the end tail of it, when Parliament absolutely ran away from that case, and you hosted us again, myself and the majority leader by then, Honorable Abbas Bundu, Honorable Bundu, Ibrahim Bundu. So Ibrahim Bundu, alluded that if the information that we later on gave Parliament, if that would have been the information, would have not reached to that point. Here on your program, I still have the archive, right? Here, openly to the nation, okay? So, when we hold institutions accountable, we don't hate them. I mean, my background is purely legal background. I have few causes that are not law related. Very few causes, very few. But all what I want is people like Moray, who work for the judiciary, cannot risk his life, sit on Okada, travel to a radio station, but there should be a pool of cars, not only for judges, but even staff, like him and others. When you look at our press release, that is what we're calling for. We're not calling only for the big guys, but also for the other guys who are helping for our justice wheel to roll.
Now, Fatoma, I understand that you are very much concerned about the welfare of the judicial system. You just spoke about the aspect of accountability and monitoring and things like that. Now, has there been any sort of avenue where you were able to meet with government officials or stakeholders? And if so, what was the response? And if there has been any sort of, avenue for that, why is that?
On my daily basis, I talk across different government stakeholders, formally and informally. And like, for example, we currently requested for the cases that has been assigned to magistrates and judges since January to October. So we made that request. The letter was written on the 28th of October and delivered on the 29th of October, that's last month. So through the right to access to information, making a formal request. And we rely on section 23, section 120, subsection 3, that say the judiciary, is subjected to the Constitution of Sierra Leone and other law. So the right to access to information is a law of Sierra Leone, which the judiciary needs to respect. And we don't need the name or the personal details of the litigant, or what we need, and this is a public information, the number of cases. So now, Moray is sharing with us the fantastic statistics they have internally. Very good statistics they have internally. But we all cannot benchmark ourselves. Even ourselves at CHRDI, we are subjected to the Sierra Leonean laws and the regulations. So whenever we are called upon, we are in compliance because we are not above the law. We are subject to the laws of Sierra Leone and other international laws. So with that, the deadline passed. They did not respond, not even acknowledge the receipt of our letter. So what the laws provide for us in the right to access to information is to make a formal complaint for non-compliance. So yesterday, we delivered again another letter to the judiciary and we've make a formal complaint to the right to access and also inform other executive bodies. If we have the statistics format, it empowers us. They cannot speak for themselves. They don't have that platform to actually go out and beg. It compromises the integrity of the judiciary. It's people like us, and we have been doing that. 2023, the current registrar for the Supreme Court, when we attend donors meetings, development partners meeting, ahead of how the donor partners will put assistance together for the government of Sierra Leone and key players. He will be there alone. He will only get a backup from us, myself, and Ibrahim Tomi, actually advocating that the judiciary deserve much more than what they have. And even the budget allocations, when they are short of budgetary allocation, you have read several of our press releases. We keep advocating for the underfunding. And you go back to our 2019 policy brief. We also advocate for an independent boss. Let us have back part of our constitution. It was there after independence. The judiciary was having their judiciary treasury. So if staff are constrained, we can buy a porter bus for them.
Okay, let's hold you then, ushering Moray. You've heard from Fatoma. He has highlighted a couple of things, and one which has to do with monitoring within the judicial system. Now, in his statement also, he speaks on the executive interference. Now, what are some of the safeguards currently in order to prevent some of these executive interference within the judicial system?
Well, in the first place, I know not of any executive interference within the institution. I started off by laying a very good premise on how we operate independently without the interference of anybody whatsoever or subject to the directions or instructions of anybody. That being said, like I said, justice is expensive, which he said, I have said, it's expensive. And to run a judicial system, it needs money. But he pointed out something we should commend the Honorable Acting Chief Justice for, which he wants to spin in another way. We have judges, we have judges, and we have magistrates. Now, the Chief Justice is the head of the institution. Now, he sits at the Supreme Court. But for efficiency and effective service delivery, part of his ceremonial functions is the assignment of cases, to ensure cases are assigned to judges and to the judges to preside over them at the end of the day deliver justice where the evidence leads. Now, for some unprecedented reasons, a novelty for the first time, he has not only opened the September criminal session to assign cases to judges, he has chosen to sit on those cases, each and every one of them himself. For a Supreme Court judge, the Chief Justice, to humble himself, to be sitting on high court cases on a daily basis, amid the plethora of executive and other administrative functions he has to perform, speaks volume of his intention to ensure that cases are speedily dealt with before the court. That does not mean, like he said, there are other judges who are lazy. Like we have said, he's made a very serious case, which I'm backing, that our judges are overwhelmed at every point. In fact, part of why he initiated, being an experienced bencher within judiciary, the Chief Justice ensured that we revive the JP's court. which would, to a very large extent, relieve magistrates of the burden of dealing with all sort of cases, abusive languages, what have you, look me by the eye, if I will say that. Then they will now focus on purely PI, and where the evidence leads or is sufficient for trial, they can commit to the High Court. So that has been running to ensure there is speed. For monitoring, I beg to disagree, with all due respect. This is the first Chief Justice that we have that is in the General Staff Forum with staff members. We have a staff forum where he is a member. And when issues arise, they are posted directly. He deals with them there. He gives instructions. He calls the person responsible for any other thing that will come up in that forum to be addressed instant. So he has cut down on that bureaucratic system set up to say you have to pass through other bosses to get to the Chief Justice if there's a point of concern, which is not common. He is on that page. Every other clerk, registrar can take a phone and call the current Chief Justice to say, this is going on in my court, which I'm not okay with, or so person wants to interfere with processes which are not okay. But everything of public concern that will push the effectiveness of the judiciary has been dealt with on that page. People raise concern, and he, being the head, will give specific directions to those who are appropriate to handle those issues. So there's effective monitoring at every level. A clerk in Kabbalah can post a point of concern on that page. In the next 20 to 30 minutes, there's a response. The person responsible to handle that is contacted and dealt with instant. So that is how closer the administration has been brought to the people who are at the field doing the real work. Now, that he said judges are lazy, no. There has been a clear, no, you said, could it be that they are lazy because the Chief Justice had no...
We'll allow you to respond. Let's just...
Because the Chief Justice had to come down to sit on cases. We have said the judges are overwhelmed. That notwithstanding. To speed up the rate at which cases are dealt with, when he came, there were a lot of backlog cases. I can speak to this medium and to every Sierra to say there's been no case before the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, or the High Court that has not received assignment. In recent times, no lawyer can point to any case to say there should be a panel formed, set up to investigate, to look into this case that has not been set up. No. All backlog cases, pending assignments have been cleared. That's notwithstanding also. He realized as an experienced bencher that there were delays at the Court of Appeal with the way cases were dealt with. In fact, their composition, being an experienced bencher, was to him a little bit responsible for the slow pace at which cases were dealt with. What he did, he set up a six panel to preside over cases at the Court of Appeal. Now, you will wonder the rate at which those 6 panels have been dealing with cases at the Court of Appeal. Clear case clearance at every court system in this country, from the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, the High Court, speed at which. Now, where there are no resident High Court judges, I can speak to you, there have been frantic efforts to take justice to the people. As I speak to you, a Supreme Court judge is in Kabbalah, presiding over cases at the High Court in Kabbalah, Supreme Court. I was there just last week. Previously, another ended in Matrujon, where the judge now will go. And when we do so, we make provision for witness transport fares. That is given to witnesses because most of the witnesses come from long, far distances to where the court holds. So we give transport stipends to those witnesses to ensure that they don't get bored or overburdened with the transportation fare to get their cases heard. That is the extent we are going to ensure that cases...
And it's not any form of interference.
No. We provide it. We go. If you testify, your name is written, you're giving your transport refund to ensure if the case is adjourned to the next day, you don't say, I don't have money to come back. You're giving that transport refund. It is happening, but we will not brag about that in the press release. But these are the things we are doing to ensure that justice has a smooth wheel that is running and people feel justice happening. Like I told you, where funds are available, there will be a court setup, a high court setup at Waterloo to deal with the emerging number of cases at the Waterloo court. As I speak to you now, he has added another magistrate to be added to the existing one to ensure that there is speed at the Western Rural area there.
Before Fatoma come to make his submission, would you agree that the judicial system is transparent enough?
As far as I know, the judicial system run under the Honorable Acting Chief Justice Nicholas Brown-Mark is transparent, free, fair, and accountable to the people of this country. He is aware of a forum that comprises a plethora of people from different walks of life. Mr. Kuruma is part of that forum. I'm part of that forum. All the judges are part of that forum. Where anybody can say this court in Pujang needs refurbishment. It is dilapidated. They put it on that forum. That is to say we are not shying away from public accountability as a public institution, but we are striving to be much more efficient, and that is what is attracting the number of cases coming before the court in recent times.
But even as that, we've seen instances even in that forum wherein people are being. You see when people say things. So for instance, I was watching through the forum. Fatoma made a post, and someone had to respond in a way that seemed very much uncalled for.
Protecting the image of our institution is our primary function as PR persons. Now, that does not mean we approach the public on a dishonest note.
But that was constructive criticism. In my
that
opinion.
does not mean we approach the public on a dishonest note. But when we see a pattern that is aimed at just getting at the administration of justice unnecessarily, we fall very heavily, because, like he said, if we are trying to turn around the misconception around public trust in the institution, any good citizen will not just go to the press with rumors to say this is happening without reverting to the institution to cross-check, say, are these things happening? I've confronted the judiciary on a number of issues, this being one, but all attempts have proved futile. Anybody, a good citizen, amidst these misconceptions around the judiciary, should ask him or herself, these concerns have come up, like he said, from staff members. The first thing to do responsibly is to get to the judiciary. Are you aware of this happening?
Okay.
Are you aware of this happening? He didn't do that. So when we see a pattern that has the likelihood to continue, we come down and we try to draw the line between public information and public misinformation. That is what we have done. We have written an extensive reply to every issue of relevance raised in his press release. That is also in circulation. He went and also issued another press release, which we believe is to a very large extent demeaning the relevance of press release because it's not a platform for war.
Oh, Fatoma, let's come back to you. I know there are lots of comments that you love to make with regards Maury's submission, but in terms of comparison, how would you compare the judicial system of Sierra Leone to that of other West African countries in terms of the efficiency, independence, and that of integrity?
Maybe for Guinea and Liberia, yes. Well, when it comes to like Ghana, they have their own challenges, but they have, a speedy process, and their systems are in place to actually see how justice works. And for the people of Ghana, but still, even in England, you still have people who have challenges in terms of having access to justice, in as much as they have the legal aid, but it also comes with a threshold, how much you earn per house, for a family. So if like your income is above the threshold that's set up, even though you consider to be a poor person, you will still have challenges. I believe even in the United States. So, but he was saying, I was asking a question and making an example. Could it be? And he said I was spinning. I was not spinning anything. I mean, it just confirmed that what we said in our press release, that is the reality at the judiciary. That we have a catalog as a country, we have a catalog of backlog cases. And the judiciary think that because if the judges are already overwhelmed with their own caseloads, and there is this pending cases, and the Supreme Court is not sitting, they have over 90-something cases now. We have that data at the Supreme Court, over 90-something cases filed at the Supreme Court. So, but they're not sitting regularly like the magistrate and the High Court. So if there is a need for the judicial administration to actually reduce that caseload, I mean, these are the things we're calling for. Expediting trial process, right? And so people who are beyond bars, will not continue to be beyond bias. So I was asking question. Could it be, with no disrespect, I said that maybe our judges are lazy, or could it be that they are overwhelmed? So he didn't look at the other side of they are overwhelmed. He only picked the negative side. Like he picked the issue that, I mean, the first media person that says press release is irrelevant. It's one of our advocacy tools. Press release is one of our advocacy tools. So if you think it's irrelevant, the best thing any individual or a group should do is to completely ignore, because it's irrelevant. But if it has some level of relevancy, or it's highly relevant, then you need to pay attention to it and work on it. He talks about accountability. Now, we have just sent a letter yesterday to the right to access to information about the judiciary not being in compliance, right? We asked them for within 15 working days to submit, not even an acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is quite different than reply. We acknowledge the receipt of your letter, or we are replying to your letter. But we did not. And if you pride the ticket that you are accountable and you are open, and then an organization made a formal request, not outside of the law, but within the laws of Sierra Leone, and then you shun that. And it has to give us the cause to now make a complaint. So now we are looking up to right to access to information as per law, to look into our request and see again, maybe the judiciary may or may not respond to right to access if they write them letter to do the necessary thing. And the thing is that the judiciary has not been the only organization that we have requested information from right to access. And even the right to access, they themselves, we have asked them for information way before, and we asked them that they cannot be continuing functioning without their regulations. It's improper, it's out of place, and it cannot be inconsistent. It cannot be consistent with the provisions in the law. So they accepted that engagement with us. And now they appreciated us so highly in terms of holding them to account to ensure that now they have regulations that everyone, every citizen will benefit from, right? Mm-hmm. And like what pattern he's thinking about that press release portray, I don't know for him. But I'm here speaking to the nation, and he agrees with me a lot on the issues that our press release stands for. Literally, you guys were reading paragraph after paragraph, and we dealt with them, right? And he agrees with me. So I don't know if they are against the pattern of reform, if that irritates them. I don't know if they are against the pattern of him having a good package back home so his family can really feel good that my husband is working for the judiciary, and the kids say my dad working for the judiciary, and I cannot go to any school of my choice because my dad can afford it, because there is somebody out there who advocates for this and who he abused for that to happen. But when you choose the civil society platform or media platform, and you be a critical voice to society, one thing you always expect, I mean, after my parliamentary engagement, you know, Amnesty International put me part of the global human rights defenders and interviewed our lifestyle. What is it like? And I told them that my family, my children know that I could be killed while doing my work. I'll be attacked while doing my work. I'll be arrested and detained while doing my work. Dozen a time they have abused my mother. I've never responded to a single person with that. Dozen a time. My parent. I've never ever in my life. I deal with issues that can change our life. But I don't deal with your personality because it has nothing to do with me. And when you go through our press releases, we don't actually target a particular personality. We target system that are affecting us all as a country, even those that are in the system. We're talking for them. And the bad patterns we have in this country, when every boss comes in, they have their own fence, bills around them, marginalizing other. The judiciary is not the only place. It happens across government institutions. What happened? People like Moray, who will be out here defending that institution, right? The other person coming after Justice Bramak, there will be other people within the judiciary who will say, oh, this is not been there with you, no, but I been there. And what happened next? He started getting stressed. He will not be given more opportunity to flex himself like he's doing now. He will not be having that shield. How do we put an end to that? It is us, as a people, needs to come boldly and openly and face the consequence that enough is enough. No matter who is working here, should have an equal right and should be protected, and they have right to be associated. And then we also look for the day when we have engaged government officials, like Marina said, senior government officials, about the status. How would they come in and assist the judiciary with two things? For us to have a public service code in this country, we don't have it. They are public servants. But they are resort to what? The civil service code, they deny to that. But when you look at the query letters coming from the judiciary, they are constrained to really cite to a law that confirms government workers. When they were denying it, I was laughing. And people think that when I laugh, it's disrespect. It's not disrespect. It is a way of expressing my sadness. I mean, some people will cry when they are sad. Sometimes I laugh to actually get the sadness over me. So it's no way of disrespect, right? So we want this country to have a public service code, and we also want this country, the judiciary, to have an updated code of conduct.
We'll have to talk on the way forward as to this all-important sector within society. We've had a couple of messages, just to get a few of these messages. Okay. First for mind is from Mosdi, who says, thus the plethora of issues in the country are going to be very difficult to address. The denial of notable facts has remained the greatest obstacle. The gentleman has himself admitted to the constraints of proper funding for this important, if not probably the most important branch of government institutions, which in turn restricts them to enough staffing from judges, magistrates, etc. I don't think there is any doubt about the problems in our judicial system. These problems stem from political interference, corruption, lack of transparency, etc., etc.
Another one from Mohammed Nyali. Political interference into the judicial system is a serious problem, and I'm sure that those interferences led to the removal of the jury system from the Criminal Procedure Act of 2024.
Mohammed El Jallo says, good morning, YV. It's honestly the truth that our judiciary sector is significantly challenged, not only from the lack of more staff, but also the lack of better working conditions for judiciary staff. The greatest problem that our country is the majority of our budget is funded by donor funds and international partners, which makes it highly difficult to run a country with competing interests. Moving forward as a nation, if we want to get things done right, we must first be able to raise the majority of our budgets finances as opposed to what is happening now.
I think those are a few of the messages we can take. And Lamin Albert is saying the issues are plenty. Indeed, the issues are many, and that's why
again there is one from Mohammed which says the judiciary of this country is not independent, because before appointing these, of course he called them guys, but I would say these judges, they are already, of course, they are already.
Don't follow his lines.
Those are few of the messages. But Fatoma, quickly before you respond and send it to you, Maury, let's say, for instance, if the government fails to act based on your recommendations or the things you've proposed, what are the alternative or strategies those CHRDI will implement?
Well, we always have every campaign plan and procedure, and like I said earlier, when we started with Parliament, we started in July 2016, and we run it to March. You know, January I was arrested, January 31st, and the 1st, you know, I was released, right, without a bail bond or other things, and we amicably, they asked me to present evidence. I present evidence and said, well, you should have bring this before, so you can go now, you are our brother. So then I have to carry the blunt of the mamikos right inside the well of Parliament. I've been saying that. Recently I was there to chair a program about now the openness of Parliament and Parliament winning awards, right? And I said that someone have to be jailed and someone was molested before we achieve this accolade. And the Deputy Speaker was there, other members of Parliament, and so many others agreed. The sacrifice I made, the boldness our organization made to challenge institutions like Parliament for the very first time in the history of this country, right? And we have procedures. Now, we have looked into the staffing issues. We're now reviewing some financial documents that we have. We're doing a forensic things on them. And we also have a problem of clarity on the number of cases that are before the court, because we have collected some few figures from certain court. But for it to be more formal and official, we now ask formally for us to see the discrepancies in what we have and what is available formally, right? And we, like I said, we have already engaged government ministers and other senior government officials, and we have talked over these issues. And now the Ministry of Labor have made a strong promise that they would work with the judiciary to look into the labor law related allegations, right? And we hold the Minister of Labor is a trusted man, is someone I have high respect for. He said that openly, and we hope that he will work with the judiciary to ensure that people like Maury and several others will never be victimized. That's our dream, that nobody needs to work for the judiciary or work for any government institution or even AYV or even CHRDI for them to be victimized. That is our wish, and that is what we want, right? And we will continue to work with all relevant stakeholders, both development partners and government, to ensure that we support the access to justice in this country. Currently, we're working with the Ombudsman's Office to help them to reverse the 1997 Ombudsman's Act. And we're currently doing a joint bid under the Open Government Initiative, you know, working with NASED in relation to that, to see how best public administration. Do you know how much public, both civil servants and public officers, how many of them face victimization and they cry in silence? They actually cry in silence. They get molested at their workplace. And this is the culture that we should put an end to. It's good for all of us. I'm not working for government. I've never in my life worked for government. So, but I have friends who work for government. I have cousins that work for government.
Let's have your response to some of the messages, but quickly, how does the judiciary handle critical analysis or reports like that, which has been published by CHRDI?
Before I come to that, I'll need to speak to some issues he pointed out before I come to that. And in his press release, he said we have agreed on certain things in his press release. Almost he said we have agreed. But there are things we have not agreed with, which we clearly pointed out in our press release. He speaks of discrimination within the institution, harassment within the institution, which we have spoken to equally that we operate a free, fair, and transparent system. Now, it is only in politics that you think about the politics of the entitled and the aggrieved. When one party wins, they are the entitled, they enjoy. And then the opposition maybe will cry, say, I am aggrieved. But we don't run a political institution. We are the only independent arbiter of justice in this country. There has only been one judiciary since its establishment. What happens is the leadership changes. The Chief Justice is removed across the world, as far as I know. Even in advanced democracies like the US, it is the president that appoints the Chief Justice. As I speak to you, Donald Trump is in consultations choosing or selecting his Attorney General with all of the if you follow internationally, to all of the criminal allegations against him, what have you, some pending sentences. He has to choose his Attorney General. So there are widespread debate, even in advanced democracies. But bringing it to Sierra Leone, we have ensured that we deliver on our mandate independently, impartially, and transparently, which we cannot deny. I have said that part of the strides we have put in place is case clearance across all the levels of the judiciary. Now, I'll read to you what one experienced lawyer wrote. Published that in his capacity as an experienced lawyer. M.M. Mansari ASQ wrote, Guidance of Justice, Sierra Leone's judiciary under the stewardship of Acting Chief Justice Nicholas Bramak. I'll read. Under the Acting Chief Justice, Sierra Leone has advanced a transparent, efficient, and credible legal system committed to constitutional values and public trust. The second paragraph says significant gains include increased case clearance rates at the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, High Court, reflecting an efficient system aimed at reducing backlog and expedient justice delivery. So this is not something we have conjured to the public. People who are actually coming before the court, experienced lawyers, have noticed and have come to terms with these internal changes, sweeping the system from whatever act that will be termed as inimical to the growth, integrity of the institution. This is what the Honorable Acting Chief Justice stands for. Now, to say when there is a change, another person comes, you have one staff, a staff of an institution. Unlike the executive or parliament that changes over time, we only have the head appointed. Every other staff remains. Nobody can say this Chief Justice has come, has laid off this person because he or she does not resonate with his idea. No. If there's a clear-cut misconduct from your act as a staff, which he pointed out to, staff members being subjected to disciplinary action, is because their actions have been inimical to the integrity of the institution. Now, one of the people he highlighted in his press release is a bailiff. We know the critical role of bailiff. To correct what he said, that the under-sheriff is the Inspector General of Police, we have the under-sheriff resident within our institution. His appointment is provided for by Section 140 of the Constitution. Now, the Inspector General of Police is the sheriff of the High Court. We have the under-sheriff resident. So, when there are court orders to be executed, the Inspector General of Police, people can go back to I'm not here to make a point, but just to clarify that we have the under-sheriff of the High Court. The Inspector General of Police is the sheriff of the High Court. Now, when there is a court order, for that court order to be effected, the Inspector General of Police has to liaise with our under-sheriff to ensure that those court orders are effected. There has been no time. The police would go. The High Court has unlimited jurisdiction. There's no point a High Court order would say evict XYZ and the police or any judicial staff do otherwise. Now, the case he's pointed is an instance where a bailiff frankly went on a frolic of his own after a court order without the necessary supporting documents to effect the eviction. Now, if somebody is wrongly evicted from a premise that he or she is qualified to live in, do you know the distress that person goes through? So that staff clearly has to be subjected to serious disciplinary action to ensure that, in fact, the image of the institution, later you come to realize that, in fact, that was the wrong person evicted. Do you know the stain that brings to the institution? So he has to be subjected to some actions, disciplinary actions, to curtail his actions to conform to best practice and to the laws within the institution. For political interference, I have said from the start that we preside on cases both civil and criminal. I have said we have had instances where we have entertained people, well, he'll call them politicians, but when they come to us for criminal cases, they are tagged as accused persons. We have tried Mr. Mohamed Kameba Masari. He didn't come to us as the state versus the political head of a political party. No. We have tried retired Major Paolo Conte. He did not come to us as a member of a political party. He came before us as an accused person. Now, for civil cases, like election petitions that come before the court, those are election cases. The court, the High Court has jurisdiction to entertain them. Now, when they do, with their political nature, they sit and preside, and where the evidence leads, they deliver the judgment appropriately.
Quickly, as we try to wrap up, what are we, expecting in terms of addressing all of these challenges within the judiciary system?
In just a minute, please.
Well, just trying to reaffirm our position that we run a free, fair, and transparent system. With all due respect to Mr. Fatoma, we recognize the space of the civil society in any democratic state, and where he feels strongly that there are evidence of corruption within the institution, he can revert to the ACC that has the constitutional mandate to investigate acts of corruption. We are a public institution, like I've said, subject to scrutiny. The ACC can come in and conduct whatever investigation that he thinks he has evidence to prove that we're corrupt or there are acts within the institution that he refers to as corrupt. But we remain committed as an institution to deliver our mandate of administering justice to the people of this country, and we will ensure that that is achieved amidst whatever resources we have. That is a commitment every other person, from the Chief Justice to the least messenger in the institution, has acknowledged that we have to work, and we are putting all hands on deck to ensure that we push the judiciary forward.
Quickly, Fatoma.
We want to assure the people of this country and the judiciary that we will continue to hold them accountable, and they are subject to accountability, public scrutiny, and public comment. We will continue to do that in a very constructive platform, as we have been doing previous years and now. And we will also continue to advocate to government to ensure that the judiciary have what it takes for them to do their work. And so the people of this country will be guaranteed, as per the Constitution, with their right to justice and have access to justice. We have talked about the challenges, and he agreed with the challenges that we alluded in our press release.
Sure.
And the area of corruption, our second press release responded, and we quoted what they said in their own press release, paragraph 7 of their own press release. We don't babysit corruption. I was here in one of your programs when Bank of Sierra Leone bribed the Sierra Leone police for the 5 million. We had the evidence. We pursued that with ACC, and we ensured that the Bank of Sierra Leone returns back the money to the people of Sierra Leone. Nobody have the right to pay for police investigation. It's free.
Okay.
Government pays for that. So if we have the evidence, we accept, what he's saying, that the moment we have the evidence, we know the authorities.
Okay, I'd like to hold you there because of time. Thank you very much, Abdul Fatoma from Campaign for Human Rights and Development International, CHRDI. And also thank you very much, Francis Morey, who is the Public Relations Officer 2 from the Judiciary of Sierra Leone.